Welcome to the Pelvic Messenger, the show that dives into the world of chronic pelvic pain. The Pelvic Messenger brings to you a message of hope. Empower yourself with the knowledge, understanding, and tools to best manage your pelvic problems and pain. My own personal struggles with endometriosis, interstitial cystitis, and pelvic floor dysfunction have led me to be an advocate and a voice for all of the diseases, syndromes, and complexities of the pelvis. It is with great empathy and compassion that I bring this show to you. Enjoy the next hour, and together, let us learn and inspire one another. Together we can create real and lasting change. This show and the website for Pelvic Messenger are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding medical concerns or conditions.
Hello, and welcome to another very special show of Pelvic Messenger. I'm excited to bring to you today the first show in a series that I'm going to be weaving in throughout the summer called the International Sisterhood of Endometriosis. I want to invite our listeners to call in with any questions or comments today. That number is 1-323-693-3847. This series will not run one show after another, but rather will be interwoven throughout the summer, like I just stated. So I encourage you to stay tuned and listen to each show each week and log on to either the website or Blog Talk Radio /Pelvic Messenger to see what the guest and what the topic is each week. To start off this series, I have asked Miss Lori Houghton to be my guest today. It was an easy pick for me for the first show. She is amazing. She comes to us from Ottawa, Canada. She is an advocate and supporter of the disease, endometriosis, and also someone who suffers daily from endo. Lori runs her own PR firm, and she has used those skills to create the largest international support group on Facebook, which I have a pleasure of being a part of. She was the first person, like I said, that I thought of when I decided to do this series, because personally I have gotten so very much out of her support group and have found it amazing, the connection that we all have around the world with this disease, endometriosis. I'm going to give just a quick definition of endometriosis for our listeners that are out there that may not be aware of technically what this disease is. It's a condition in which some of the lining of the cells from inside the uterus unfortunately end up in the wrong place. They become attached to various areas within the pelvic region, the ovaries, intestinal tract, bladder, elsewhere. Actually, they can attach just about anywhere within your body. So just as the cells inside the uterus swell and are shed each month during a woman's menstrual cycle, these misplaced uterine cells do exactly the same thing. So they swell, they bleed, and it can cause a myriad of symptoms. Each can be different for each woman, but pretty much the common symptom is pelvic pain. So now that we have talked about that, we're going to go back to Lori. She also runs support groups in Canada, and I'm going to start by just sharing with you some of her personal background with the disease. Lori grew up showing horses, only knowing pain caused by horse-related injuries, that normally she was pretty much able to suck up and keep riding through. She confesses that she was one of those girls who would roll her eyes at classmates when they complained about cramps, and even though she remembers quite well the day before her mother's hysterectomy, when her mother would be curled up with a heating pad in pain, Lori really never thought about how much her monthly cycles or the slight discomfort that came with them really affected anything. I quote her directly, "Because my family bred and raised quarter horses for showing, I understood more about a mare's reproductive system and cycles than I did my own." That is a direct quote from her. And on April 15th, 2005, she shares that this day changed her relationship with pain forever. At her office, in high spirits, retelling the story of her weekend hosting a wedding shower for her best friend, she was suddenly doubled over in pain. And I quote Lori again, "It was like someone had impaled me with a sword just above my pubic bone," recalls Lori. Her coworkers, with concern, noted that the color of her face had left and suggested that she go lay down in the employee lounge. Taking their advice, Lori hunched over, hugging her middle section, and somehow made it to the women's lounge and tried to regroup. The regrouping process is something that she says she now has to do almost on a daily basis. The pain-free days have been few and far between for Lori since that first day in 2005. She had her first exploratory laparoscopic surgery in March of 2006. Lori was then, at that time, diagnosed with stage 1 endometriosis, and thus began her search for a treatment plan that would manage the endo and relieve her pain. Hormone therapies, which put her body into medical menopause, birth control pills to regulate hormones, pain medication, counseling from a chronic pain psychologist, excision surgery, and radical dietary changes have all been a part of her trial and error efforts to find a way to live in harmony with her body. I think we all can relate to that. I quote Lori again, "My body betrays me on a daily basis. Even on good days, the pain from endo is like a frenemy. You know it so well, and there is no doubt that you have a relationship, but at the same time, you really hate that it is always following you around and is so critical of your every move and decision." Lori openly admits that she went through the, "oh my God, I have what?" period, where she researched everything she could get her hands on in relation to endometriosis and pain. And then she slipped into a why me phase, and she allowed depression and the relationship that has to chronic pain to set in and control her life. She says that she then moved on to a mourning phase where she cried for the pain. She cried for the free woman that she once was, and eventually came to the phase of acceptance, where she began to use the knowledge of endometriosis and pain management that she had gained through research, medical counseling, to start to rebuild her own new normal. Today, Lori feels she has moved into a warrior phase. I can definitely say that I completely relate to Lori on that. I'm also in that same phase of my life, although I also kind of mingle between those other phases too, depending on the day. She says that on bad days, instead of curling up with a heating pad and pain pills and praying for sleep to escape the pain, she says, "I get angry. I fire up my laptop and I reach out to other women with endometriosis from around the world. It's my way of kicking endo in the face and saying, no, you will no longer hold me prisoner in my own body, and I will no longer feel alone or be silenced in dealing with you." Becoming an endo activist has been, for Lori, a new purpose and a type of control over this disease that no medication could have ever offered her. She put her professional resources as a public relations consultant to work every day, and in some way she helps every single day for the global endometriosis awareness movement. And to that, I think that just speaks volumes. Lori, thank you so much for being on my second show and for starting out this very important series on the International Sisterhood of Endo.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here and quite honored to be your first speaker on this topic.
So I want to just start with having you tell us how your group, Endometriosis Gateway Angel, tell us how it got started and how it's progressed and what advantages it has to offer its members that other support groups do not.
It's actually kind of a funny story. I was part of another smaller online support group. It was a private group, so it was basically a group of 100 or so women. And we caught wind that there was another Facebook group that had been started by a supposed doctor. So a couple of us flocked there thinking, okay, well, maybe we might actually get some medical insight into this, and it might actually help to talk to a medical care provider. And so we log in there, and we're looking at the conversations, and, of course, as support groups go, people wanted to know what other people had done as far as treatments, and as the treatments got listed, then there was comments as to, whether or not those individuals thought that those drugs worked for them or had horrible stories or great stories to tell about those drugs. And the person, the supposed doctor, and we nicknamed him Dr. Doug, began to kind of control the women as to what their comments were and how they were allowed to express themselves, and really started trying to censor the group. And so myself and Julie Wiseman, who's from Georgia, who I had known from the other group, kind of did a tag team on him and started basically telling him that there was value in listening to the words of these women, that there were specific reasons why these conversations were flowing like they were, because Julie and I had seen them from other support groups. And we tried to explain to them that when you're a chronic pain patient or a chronic illness patient of any kind, it's a very interesting dichotomy with your family and your friends. Most people expect that when you get sick, you go to a doctor, you get diagnosed, you get treatment, and you get well. And so they understand that, there's a disease phase where you're sick, and then you either succumb to your illness or you get well. So for most people, their understanding of being ill, they don't look at it as an aspect of you're ill forever. And this is one of the difficult parts of living with chronic illness. And so we tried to explain to them this was the reason why these women were reaching out to each other and reaching out to him as well, trying to find out what they were doing to cope with this. And it was because of that interesting dichotomy with your family that these questions existed, and that there was no way that he could censor them because it just simply wasn't fair. People wanted answers, and we know that the research and the science is limited behind endometriosis, but because of that, we want to know what little piece of the pie somebody else might want to know. So basically, we slammed him for a good 12 hours back and forth, and it was a pretty long thing. And he was getting quite frustrated. He threatened to close down the group, and then we told him why it was valuable, that, we wanted him there. We wanted to have a discussion with the medical community. And so then he said, okay, he'd keep the group open. And it was quite the soap opera. And in the end,
wow.
Dr. Doug said that Julie and I were too much for him to take and closed it down. So that
wow.
So it was Dr. Doug is always affectionately known because, if we don't give credit to Dr. Doug and what he tried to do, what we have launched would have never existed. So he was certainly our catalyst. So then from there, Julie and I had a conversation and said, wouldn't it be great if there was a place that kind of linked all the different awareness associations and groups and movements around the world, if it tried to link the medical community and it linked the patients. And so we kind of came a multifaceted approach to this, and we've only been in existence since, I think, February 12th, so not very long, and it's just gone like wildfire.
It sure
so the
has,
reason why we're...
no, I'm sorry, you finished.
I was just going to say that one of the reasons why that we're so different from other support groups is because we're so diverse in what it is that we're trying to do, and we're backed up by many different social media tools.
You're correct, and I was just going to say that I remember when you and I connected, and you so graciously, had me join the group. I was new to so much with social media, and I had never been a part of anything support-wise. And I think at the time the group was under 200 for sure. And now you're looking at 1,500 members. I mean, it's like wildfire. And for me personally, and I think I can probably say this in confidence for a lot of the members, there's been so many times in my life within appointments with my friends, with my family, and just within my own head where I feel like something that I'm feeling or something that's happening within my body or the way that my body's reacting to the disease is unusual. I always used to kind of quote as being like, I feel like a freak of nature. And it's amazing how you post something into Endometriosis Gateway Angel, and bam, you've got 25 people backing you up, and it's from all over the world. And all of a sudden, you realize that it is quote unquote normal. It's part of the disease, and you're not alone, and you're not kind of just unusual and a freak in your symptoms. So I just wanted to shed some light on that aspect. Now, we all know that you're from Canada, so give us some insight as to the treatment of endo, the similarities to us here in the United States, and then also the differences. I mean, we all know that there's a lot of debate going on right now about health care here in the United States, and our health care is different than in Canada. And, there's all different kinds of viewpoints, I'm sure in Canada, but certainly the debate is hot here in the States right now. So if you could just give us, as a Canadian, some of your insights as far as the similarities and the differences to the treatment of endo, and how your health care is, beneficial and or, not adverse.
Certainly. Now, I'm kind of fortunate in answering this question, as I've received health care treatment both in Canada and the States because of the nature of my business, and because I grew up showing horses. Oftentimes we're in the States, and things happen. And so I have had major surgery in the U.S., and my mom has been hospitalized in the U.S. for long periods of time as well due to illness while we were at a horse show. So I can honestly say that the biggest difference that I see between Americans and Canadians as far as health care goes is our attitudes towards it and the way we approach it. In Canada, because we have a socialized system, we don't see the money go from our pockets at every visit. And I think that has a huge effect on to how we actually perceive our healthcare system and where we put the responsibility for our health. I think in Canada, what ends up happening is we pay dearly for our healthcare system. It's taken out of our taxes. But because we're not shopping specifically for a doctor and deciding where our healthcare dollars are being placed, we leave that responsibility up to the system. And so we kind of treat doctors with a little bit more of a God status here than I see in the U.S. And so what I see happening is that women just kind of put blind trust in their doctors, and whatever the doctor says, they automatically assume must be the right thing because they're the doctor, and they go along with it. In my case, I was one of those pushy people and demanded a second opinion and a third, which is not necessarily common here in Canada. And as I said, it's simply because, it's just acceptance. You don't see your money going towards it. The responsibility is then kind of laid with the healthcare professional in the system, not so much with you. And so I really had to fight for those second and third opinions. And now I'm actually on to my fourth gynecologist that was actually recommended to me by an endo association in the U.S. based on the research that he has done internationally. And now quite happy But it took me a process to get there within our system. So that's the one thing that I see being in the U.S. system is that you have an advantage to be a consumer of your health care, and you get to decide where your money goes, and you get to be an active partner with your physician to decide what your treatment's going to be. It's kind of sad that you're active because you have to decide how you're spending your money. That certainly is it's a burden that I don't think anybody should have to carry. But it does empower the patient a little bit more than what I see here in Canada. Ideally, I think a combination of both systems would be ideal, but we all know that we don't live in an ideal world. So it's a hot debate even here in Canada. We see a lot of medical spending waste. We have a bureaucracy that sucks up money from our health care instead of getting to the actual patients. So it's just a difference as to how the two systems are managed. In the U.S., it's a business, and in Canada, it's a service. And those are two vastly different approaches from an administration standpoint.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it is wonderful that here in the U.S. we are able to kind of take that more, pick your physician team approach. But I have to say, with this disease, and I think with chronic pelvic pain in general, because there's so much mystique and so much question regarding the various syndromes that can make up chronic pelvic pain, a lot of times I think you do find exactly what you said happens in Canada also happening here, where you're just going on what your doctor says because you don't have anything else to go on. So, the questioning, while it might be more, in your face here and seem like it's happening more here, I think that what you said happens over there also happens here. I know it happens a lot within the IC community, with women and men too. When I'm talking to fellow IC people, they're still in pain every single day, and they're just saying, well, this is what the doctor told me, and especially if they're like a new diagnosed, they're not kind of pushing and going with, hey, you know what, this isn't okay, we need to try something else, and if you're not going to work with me, then, just say so, and so that I can move on. But, again, it's a process for everyone. I mean, obviously, you want to trust who is your doctor, and you're going to initially just go with what they say. I think that it's important for wherever you live, all women, with endometriosis, to always trust your own instincts first.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, and I know that you agree with that too. And sometimes, we like to get angry at our doctors and point fingers and place blame. But I think, like I said, there is a lot of unknowns and there's a lot of, not answers. So if you do personally like your physician and you feel like you can trust them as a human being, then it's worth, like you said, kind of doing a team effort, even though that's not the quote-unquote ideal, but working together to figure it out, and, does it kind of suck that you're the one spending the money to help, them figure it out? It does, right. But, in the end, what's more important, that you feel well and that you're maintaining a high standard and a trust with your doctor-patient relationship, or that you're just bouncing around, getting frustrated and not getting better? There's two ways to look at it. So thank you for answering that question. My third question to you is, I'd like you to talk about why it is so important and interesting to have a group where its members come from all over the globe, and what do you think, what kind of special support system does that bring?
Well, our group is very dynamic. We have a private group that's on Facebook. It is searchable, but you have to request to join. Most of the members are populated by the Endo Angel Gateway, which is a PR tool program through Facebook that basically goes out there and finds women that are discussing endometriosis already on Facebook. So it finds them, it friends them, and it adds them. It's basically what its function is. So because it doesn't really care where you're from or what you're doing, as long as endo is on your mind, we get women pulled into this group from all over the world. And the interesting part of that is there's no socioeconomic certain position that's filled with this group. We're a great mix of backgrounds and education that are in this group. And you really understand the human aspects of this disease. We have some women in there that are amazingly articulate, and we have some women that, certainly aren't. But altogether, we reach out and try to support each other no matter where they are. So it really has bonded a very special, not just a sisterhood, but a family. And another great thing about the fact that we're global is that we truly are 24/7. Even myself, I have definitely some sleep issues in relation to my chronic pain, so it's not uncommon for it to be 4 o'clock in the morning and I'm still online because I haven't went to bed yet. But then that's when I get to interact and talk to women that are in other time zones in other parts of the world. So it really, truly is a 24-hour support system simply because of the geography of the members of the group. The also really different thing about the group is that we are moderated. I have myself and Julie, who were the initial administrators of this, and then we have a number of other women that are absolutely amazing and totally dedicated to this cause that help us moderate the group. So we do have a set, kind of slate of rules, which, aren't strict. It's just basically about, being fair to other people and respecting their opinions and their decisions. And so we enforce those rules, and there's a little, every once in a while, things happen in the group, but we do go ahead and we moderate it, and we stick to those rules. So that is something that's very, very different about our group. Again, the best thing about our group would be the fact, though, that there's always somebody there with a different opinion, a different idea, because research has come out in their country that they're sharing with us, and the fact that there's always somebody online now because of our numbers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And let's see, in regards to, you kind of just answered this, but I'm going to ask it more specific just because of the title and topic of the show and just because this is the first show in a series, but we call each other sisters. Tell us from your viewpoint the emotional weight that those words hold for all of us out there suffering.
Well, this is an interesting question for me. I'm actually an only child, so I don't have any sisters or brothers. And growing up, I must admit, I always really had a hard time connecting with women, especially women my own age within my own peer groups. I'm not exactly sure what that hang-up was, but I never, ever really felt connected. I always felt as if that was a peer group that was judging me or that I was in competition with. So for me, now being involved with this group and helping other women and allowing those other people to help me, I can finally say that I actually know what it is to be in a peer group where we really, literally are all in the same boat. Some days we're helping each other bail out that boat, and some days we're helping each other paddle that boat. But whatever day that happens to be, we are really and truly behind each other, and it's amazing. So for me personally, I actually know what it is now to bond with other women. And even though we're in a virtual environment, these are the friends that I honestly want with me. Late in February, I was admitted to the hospital for 4 days. And yes, I had my mom and I had my best friend in Toronto texting me. But really, all I really wanted was these women that I had met through this group, which at that time was still small. We were only a couple weeks in at that point. But those were the women that I wanted beside my bed holding my hand because they understood and they knew. And for me, personally, that is something very, very special because I've never had that before outside endo, and now that I have it with endo, that really has helped with the isolation process. I no longer feel as isolated. I don't have as much hatred towards my own body as I did before, simply because a lot of these emotions and these feelings that I've been holding for so long, these women have helped me overcome and work through. And the other thing that's totally amazing for this is basically when I was dismissed from the hospital in February, the doctors that were there were very, very supportive, but it was a teaching hospital, so I had a different doctor every day. And the doctor that discharged me basically said, well, this new pain that you're having is probably just a new pain you're going to have to deal with. And I kind of broke down to my mom and I said, how am I going to deal with new pain on top of everything else that I'm already dealing with? This is crazy. This is impossible. And I just dreaded going home thinking, oh, my God, I'm going to spiral into another depression, like things are just going to go crazy. And that's not what ended up happening because now I was involved with this group. And like I said in the bio I sent you, every time now it really kicks in and gets really bad, it just makes me angry, and I reach out to those other women, and they're there to support me and help me through those pain days.
Yeah, I have felt that too. I do have a sibling. I have a younger brother, but for me, my pain became chronic, as in every day, 24 hours a day, upon moving to a new city where I knew no one. And I completely understand, like, that isolation. It's been extremely difficult for me the past 3 years to be battling the unknown of diagnosis and disease. It's been a process for me here, just getting every little aspect of it diagnosed so that every little aspect of it could be treated.
Right.
In addition to the fact that I have 2 small children, one of which I became pregnant with within 3 months of living here. So it's been impossible for me actually to open up and make friends. And I think part of that's been obviously the disease and just feeling so bad about yourself, and you just don't want to put that on another person. You don't want to start a new relationship, and the disease is so much a part of you, and it's so much a part of your everyday living that you don't want to, bring somebody new into what you go through every day. So while I have my friends in Chicago where, I consider Chicago my home. I lived there for over a decade, and those girls and my guy friends there, I mean, they've known me forever and through everything, so they love me no matter what. It's an unconditional love, just like family. So me going into a chronic illness in the last 3 years, they remember me being intermittent with illness and being in and out of the hospital, throughout the many years, but it was never an everyday, all-day thing. And so while they're very supportive over the phone or, emails and everything, it's still just not quite the same. And so once I became a part of your group, I completely agree. It was like I'd grown friends. Like all of a sudden, I just not only did I have friends, finally, in this new place that I lived where I really felt isolated. I mean, even though they're not physically with me, they're with me, and we share and hold a bond that nobody else understands. And so it's to me, the sisterhood, it's very deep, and it runs, it's blood to me. It's virtual. It's virtual cyber blood, but it means so much.
Yeah, and it works just like a regular group of women getting together and talking over drinks or whatever too. We talk about every aspect of our lives and not just the endo. We share jokes and we share different aspects of our lives with each other, but we also talk about big things that happened in our lives and how the endo affects that and impacts those decisions. lately a bunch of us that are single have been talking about dating. And when is it that you bring up the subject of endometriosis to the guy that you've just met that you think is really cute and really funny? Because this really isn't an easy topic to talk about to somebody on a first or second date.
Exactly.
So we talk about the complexities that this disease now adds to our lives. Dating for me a couple years ago wasn't an issue. It just, it was something that I did more for fun than anything else. And now when I'm dating, this is a constant thing that I have to remember. How is this going to affect my sex life? How is this going to affect the way this person views me? Is he going to think I'm a hypochondriac? And it really helps when I have over 1,200 women out there that know exactly what I'm talking about.
Exactly. And I think you're totally right. It's not with your group, our group. It's not all just like gloom and doom, endo all day long. I mean, I have sat there on my computer laughing out loud so hard at the conversations and the posts. And my kids and my husband will look at me, and it's funny. And so I always make the comment that the endo community is one of the most clever, funny, jovial communities that you'll find out there, full of chronic pain people. So that's a really nice thing. Tell me, what are your up-and-coming plans for endo awareness? I know that it's not just the group that you do. You also have support groups that you hold where you live. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, certainly. So, basically what happened was as soon as this thing was launched, the Endo Angel Gateway started getting emails from other groups around the world wanting to know where we were, what we were doing, and, basically overnight we were pretty much on the map. So it was pretty amazing to find out that there already was a support group in Toronto, and they were actually in the process of launching a national link of support groups. So there had been one here in Ottawa that had started last year that had kind of went silent for a little bit. So I contacted the woman who had started that one up and started initiating conversations between her and the group in Toronto that was in the process of going national. And so we've actually, the Toronto group has now launched a website called the endosisterhood.ca, which is complete with forums. So there's open discussion, open private discussion facilitated there, as well as a drop-down menu for each one of our provinces in Canada, and it will list meeting dates within those provinces. And the idea is that hopefully, eventually, as this spreads, we can make sure that there is a face-to-face support group network across Canada for women in need. And I will say this, as much as I love the virtual online ladies, and some of them I now consider some of my best and closest friends, it is really interesting to be sitting across from somebody at a support group, at a restaurant or somebody's house, and looking into their eyes, and without even verbally saying what we're feeling, you can tell that they know what it is you're talking about just by their body language. So that type of understanding is a comfort beyond belief, and that's been my personal experience. I've only actually been to 2 face-to-face support meetings now because the Ottawa group, as I said, is just getting up and getting going again. But it is so comforting, as I said, just to see that body language of understanding. You really don't feel like you're the odd man out anymore because, we're sharing resources, we're sharing stories, and we're sharing also stories of triumph and how we're getting over this disease and positive aspects, saying, oh, well, I've done this and this works great. And, right now our group in Ottawa, we're looking for a yoga instructor that would be willing to learn kind of endo yoga and teach us
Absolutely.
to our group.
In that case, it just struck my mind, and this is a complete example for our listeners of what happens on Gateway Angel. So you just said that about the yoga. A girl that is a friend of mine in Chicago went on the Pelvic Messenger section of ElisabethOas.com and immediately sent me an email. Oh, my God, one of my yoga friends. She's been a yoga teacher for, ever. It does specifically yoga for chronic pelvic pain. And so I have that person listed, I think in the alternatives. Yeah, it's on the alternatives page. And she's extremely approachable, and you could definitely contact her and tell her where you're at and what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And she could at least, send you out like, specific verbiage and terminology and what she does to get you started with a yoga instructor there. Or they could connect via Facebook and talk. And then if you didn't have somebody that was specified in it, you have somebody in Chicago that can then, kind of virtually train, if you will, somebody in Canada. That would be awesome.
Exactly. And, this is just another example of the resourcefulness of this group of women.
Exactly. I mean, this is a conversation that you and I would have online. It's like a total example. I would go, hey, I have this person for you. So,
Exactly. And that's all about basically what we're doing is we're sharing information. We're sharing ideas for, what they're doing in the UK to raise awareness. And people in other parts of the world now are taking on that model of awareness and implementing it in their own backyards. And so that's what it's about. It's about sharing ideas, not necessarily reinventing the world or the wheel, just saying, okay, this is working there. This is how they're doing it. This is kind of their framework. Oh, wow, we can go ahead and we can implement that. So that's also a part of a lot of what we're doing right now is creating resource tools within the group. Last week a couple weeks ago, we put it out there saying that, we're thinking about doing a weekly discussion topic. What kind of topics would you like to talk with? And within minutes, we had a great big string of suggestions. So I think right now we've got like the next 30 weeks absolutely nailed down and covered for topics. And so then we're saying, okay, well, let's not just discuss them, but let's create resource tools from them. So last week our first topic was, tell us the endo myths that you hate the most. And there was a lot of them, and some of them were just completely asking. And so from that now we're inviting those women that participated to actually get involved and help us create a YouTube video. So basically the goal of this YouTube video will be to state the myths and then dispel them. And so we're hoping that this visual tool will be something that people can pass out that link to their friends and their families, or heck, even with their doctors if they need to be updated, and say that, no, this is what the truth is. This is the science. This is the research. Those old wives' tales about who gets it and why you get it and what you do to fix it, there's no science behind that. That is purely a myth, and this is the fact.
Well, it happens with me all the time because I have 2 children. I mean, I think it happens. I cannot even tell you. It's almost practically every day that if I say I have endometriosis, what do you mean you have kids? And so that's one right there. I mean, unfortunately, and bless their hearts, and I work so very hard at what I do because I know that there's women out there that the disease has damaged organs and they will not have children from it. And, at least they will not physically have children. There's many ways to be a mother, and we all know that. But, it is a myth that there's a lot of us out there that have kids and that, it just, like I said, the disease can go anywhere. And if it happened to just not hit those areas and you got pregnant, then that's what happened. We're all built differently, and the endo spreads to different spots and different places in everybody. So that's for me probably the biggest myth that I would say pretty much weekly here. If I mention that I have endometriosis, somebody inevitably will say, wait, but you have kids. So,
right. We deal with all kinds of different topics, and the best part of it is especially when it comes to the location of endometriosis, we'll have a new woman join the group, and she'll say, well, does anybody have any information on, endo of this or endo of that? And, we'll just tell them, well, hold tight, because we know that we're somebody talking about that in here at some point. They'll find the post, or Gateway will actually go ahead and, through its programming, try to find those original posters to connect those people so that, if you have, both of you have endo of the lung, for example, that the two of you can talk about that specifically, because those are the people experiencing it that are going to be understanding not only the experience but possibly the science of it as well, because they're the ones that are researching it. So, that's one of the interesting miracles of this group is that no matter what it is that you're facing with this disease, because our numbers are growing, we're actually getting about 100 new women a week right now. That's what our stat is.
Wow,
and,
that's so amazing, Lori.
Yeah,
so cool.
We keep booking administrators that, someday we're going to log in and there's going to be like 50,000 women there. So who knows? It's exciting.
With a number like 176 million, it's around the world, it's bound to happen. Speaking of endo on the lungs, it's one of the more rare places to get it, but also one of the most dangerous places to get it. And our second show in this series, I will actually be having on two women who both have remarkable stories with endometriosis on their lungs. Majida, who you know, as she's a part of our group, Third World Endometriosis Awareness. She lives in Saudi Arabia, and she's going to be coming on and sharing not only her story, but the cultural aspects of what she deals with. And then a romance novelist, African-American woman here in the States. So, one disease, two different women, two different cultures, and it's the disease in its rarest of forms. So I'm excited about that show. I think that it not only will be interesting, but it'll, kind of give a lot of honor to what these two have been through and dealt with endo on their lungs.
I'll definitely be.
Yeah. So tell me on a personal note, we've done a lot of talking about, your contributions to society with endometriosis, but let's go back. Let's go back to Lori. Tell us your top 5, endo must-haves in terms of dealing day-to-day with your disease.
I think the first thing that you can do to equip yourself with dealing with this disease is education. There is a lot of information out there. Some of it is complete and totally ludicrous. Some of it is bang on the money. But once you start reading and learning about the disease, it's pretty easy to sort out the two. So use Google. It's going to be your best friend. Use the Google News options. Use their options to search actual medical journals. And you'll be amazing how much information you can find that's from medical journals that's actually free online. You don't have to be
absolutely. Medical journals is my favorite too.
Exactly. So read, educate yourself, know what you're dealing with. When you're in your doctor's office and you're having a conversation, have a pen and a paper with you and ask questions. And if there's terms that you don't understand, then ask questions about those terms. If there's drugs that your doctor is talking about, write down the proper names and research those names. You need to be active in your health care, especially with this disease, because it is trial and error. There isn't one cure-all, one thing that's going to work for every woman. So know your body, know the disease, and know the treatment options. And, that's going to make you a little bit more at ease when you're making these decisions as to how to move forward with your treatment options. So that is my first must-have. The second must-have now for me is a support group. I had no idea really how isolated I was feeling, even though I have a mother who had most likely endometriosis. She had a hysterectomy at age 34, and I still remember those days quite well. But then she was told that she was too young to have endometriosis. So there was never any pathology that was ran on the tumors that they removed from her when they also did her hysterectomy. I'm the 5th generation on the maternal side with reproductive issues. So when I started talking about cramps and pains and asking members of my family, it wasn't an uncommon conversation. It was just one that no one ever thought of starting with me before. So I didn't even though I had family support and women that kind of understood right within my own family what was going on with me, I was still isolated because I didn't have that peer group day to day that could totally say, you know what, you're not crazy. I understand the mood swings. I understand the fact that, at the drop of the hat, you could either scream at somebody or just start bawling. And I can't tell you how empowering that is when you actually have a bunch of women that you can confide everything in. So that is now my new number 2. My number 3 is have a medical team that you can work with and that is going to be your partner. You have to be an active partner in this. So I'm very lucky. I have a great general practitioner. He's now been with me through 3 of my 4 gynecologists. He has pretty much been what has kept my sanity through all this. I am still on a wait list that's now 4 years long instead of 5 years long to get into an actual pain clinic here in Canada. But in the meantime, he said, okay, well, there's other options for pain other than just drugs. Let's send you off to a psychologist that specializes in chronic pain. And that was a godsend. I understand how my mind works in relation to these to the pain signals. That psychologist also taught me how the pain medication, the pain drugs work, whether it be NSAIDs or be opiates. He explained to me how they impact my brain and how to take those drugs and reasonable expectations as to how that my pain is going to be controlled. So if you can't get into a pain specialist, if that is not your option, there are other people that specialize in the area of pain. Then you can talk to them, such as I did, like the psychologist. When we were on the wait list to get in to see gynecologists, because, in Canada we're famous here for wait lists, my GP said to me, okay, well, let's start ruling out other things. So I went and I saw a urologist to make sure that there wasn't anything going on in that part of my body. And then when that came back clean and there was nothing else that was there, he said, okay, well, then let's send you to a gastroenterologist and make sure that part of your body is working all right. And that came back all clear. So then I had tools to go to my gynecologist, and when they said, well, it's not gynecological, I said, well, then what else is it? Because it's not this and it's not that. And it only seems to be happening when this happens.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, your story, it's like you're telling my story. It's just so crazy. I had the same experience, except no wait list. But my internist was like, and still is, I call him my ringleader, my go-to guy. It kind of, he started out everything. He started all the initial testing. He sent me to everyone, and I agree with you that, like, your general prac, your internist, your primary care physician, whatever title you want to have that be, that person is really important when you start this process, and it needs to be somebody that you trust and that's going to be with you through and through.
Yeah, what I always tell the girls in the group is approach it like a partnership. That's what you need to tell them. I want to be a partner in my care. Are you willing to be a partner with me? And that opens up the dialogue to talking about pain options, to talk about treatment options, to talk about referrals to different specialists. And as soon as you have that level of communication and trust, that is what makes a really good relationship between a patient and a doctor work.
That's an amazing piece of advice, and the word partner and putting that out there at that first visit. I mean, that's probably the best piece of advice, that you could give anyone, Lori. And I completely agree with you on it. And gosh, you should post that in the group, because I think what else that does is it puts you both at an eye-to-eye level. It kind of takes that intimidation factor of your doctor out. I mean, they are phenomenal. They are doctors. They went to school forever. They kind of have our lives in their hands. At the same time, they're a human being, and there's no way that they are going to know every single thing ever in the world. They don't have a crystal ball in front of them. And so when you take that out, and put that word partner in there, you're going to get a lot farther.
I think so.
Again, totally agree with you there. So continue with your number 3.
So, yeah, that that partnership with the doctor, I think, is everything. And once you get that communication level, that is when I honestly believe that treatment options open up for you. We talk a lot in the group about pain, about chronic pain, because for most of the women in the group, that is what their main symptom is. And so, it's not uncommon for us to have conversations in there about opiates that are quite frank and quite to the point. It's also alternative medications like marijuana discussions. They pop up in there as well. But, what I say to the women is once you have that open and honest discussion with your doctors about pain medications, that is when treatment options open up to you. That is when your doctor is going to be willing to educate you about the responsibility of taking those different pain treatments and about, actually prescribing and developing a pain management plan that's going to work with you. You have to be open. You have to be honest. And as soon as you get to that point, that is when that relationship is going to flourish. And the reason why I say you have to get that to that point is because every day we're dealing with the stereotype of, that's just another woman that's complaining about her cycle. The luring risk of being labeled a hypochondriac is always there because you're talking about, women's stuff. And whether they're a doctor or not, I'm sure they had an Aunt Hilda somewhere that complained about everything. And you walk in the office and you complain about this or that, and you can just be another woman that complains about this or that, or you can be a woman that's serious about finding a solution or finding a way to manage this disease. And I think as soon as your doctor realizes that you're not just somebody that's hoping for a magic pill to stop everything, that is when that working relationship takes off, in my opinion.
Exactly, and you're right about the magic pill and the magic bullet. I mean, one of my biggest messages that I hope to get out, to as many people as possible, both men and women, because my focus is not only endometriosis, but chronic pelvic pain in general, because there's a lot of men out there suffering with different diseases that can make up in that region too. But there is no magic bullet, and it's not just about pills. I believe that there needs to be a balance. There has to be a balance between those pills and then what you're doing outside to also help yourself. And I think when you brought up a pain psychologist, that is one and maybe one of the first things that should be looked into. And then the yoga, the acupuncture. I mean, there's many, many alternative things out there. And if your doctor isn't open to them, then you might want to think about switching doctors, because you've got to explore some of those other alternatives and find which ones your body reacts to the best.
Right.
And your doctors need to be open to you doing that. And even, like my internist found for me a gynecologist that's also an acupuncturist. I mean, who's ever heard of that, And I was blown out of the water and so excited. And, he did that for me. So, I think it's important that your doctor not kind of poo-poo those other therapies and be willing to engage with you on, hey, have you ever thought about Reiki, or, are you doing yoga daily? Like, what are you doing on, besides just popping a pill? Because there's always going to be the day that those things just aren't working anymore, and you need to kind of have this whole balance thing to really feel better. Because unfortunately, there's always going to be days where the pain is worse than others. It just
and that's exactly what I said about the best thing about the pain psychologist is that he, not only did we talk about pain and how the actual physiology of pain works, the science of pain in the brain, which is still a new frontier. Scientists are still discovering that. In fact, the most recent research that I've been reading out of the U.S. is that they're actually trying to get chronic pain categorized as its own disease, because they're now understanding that when you're in chronic pain, the shape of the brain, the function of the brain itself changes over time because of the chronic pain. So, because all this science is on the forefront, hopefully that means that there are going to be answers in the future for us. But until then, you as the patient dealing with this has to understand how your brain is working. And you have to, if you're going to do different pain treatments that are going to involve drugs, you have to understand those medications, when to take them, and have a reasonable expectation as to what it is that they're going to do for you. And most important with all this is you have to realize that there are other things that you can do to distract yourself from the pain, and whether it be cognitive behavior modification, which I do, or meditation, or yoga movements. There are other things about distracting your brain that you need to instigate, because if you're just sitting there thinking, I hope the pain goes away, please let the pain go away, basically,
it's going to escalate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to be in more agony than you ever would be were thought of before. So you have to be proactive.
You'll be wishing for the rest of your
management.
Life. It's not going anywhere.
Exactly. You have to manage your pain.
I completely agree, and we've all been at that, like, curled up, just crying, wishing state. And I think it's important too to realize that sometimes you just feel like you have made such a success and you're doing so well, and your pain has been managed for 2-3 months, and you're just rocking and rolling. And then sometimes even still you're going to have those days where, that's why I call it fighting the good fight, because some days you're going to lose and some days you're going to win. And you need to just realize that it's going to be that way. And I'm currently having issues with when I have those bad days. I really get really down on myself because I compare it to back when I was doing really good, and that's not a healthy thing for me to do. And I know that other men and women are doing that out there too. And so I think you're spot on with understanding how the brain works, the changes that happen with chronic pain, and really understanding that after a while it's kind of the pain that becomes the diagnosis and becomes the pathology, because after so long of being in pain, like you just explained, everything changes physically and biologically. And so it's not just about, when your bladder started hurting and it was a bladder infection, or it was your IC or something with your nerves, or your endo, or your period. It's just not about those things anymore, because now it's involving your entire system, you as a whole. With endo, it's a little bit different, because we do struggle with actual, Dr. Cook, who will be coming on the show, refers to it as blisters within the body, So we do struggle with actual blistering, painful sites that are causing pain, and they're having a menstrual cycle all their own, and it might not be connected to your other menstrual cycle. So therefore, you might be kind of having it all the time. And then there's, the IC community where, yes, there's a certain number of IC patients that have ulcers within the bladder. So there again, you have an actual pathology that's contributing to the pain. But even still, when those things start to heal up, you're going to have remnants left over from what the disease has done to you within your muscles and within your nerves. And so guess what? The pain remains.
Exactly.
And that's sometimes, what I think people don't understand about the term chronic pelvic pain. They don't even understand that they have chronic pelvic pain. They think that they have, like you said, I have a disease, it's going to be treated, and then I'm going to be better. Unfortunately, sometimes that is how it goes, and I think with quicker diagnosis, we're going to see that that's how it goes for more and more people. But for a lot of us out there who, have been dealing with this for so many years, it's not going to go that way anymore. And so it's going to be a day-to-day battle, and you're always going to kind of be in that warrior position. So you are on number 4 now? Or have you gone through your 5? I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a pelvic messenger rant there.
On my 3. My 4th one would be journaling. I've never really been a real big one on writing diaries or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes, writing letters to yourself that, are really heart to heart as to, how you're feeling or what you're going through is a really good way just to get those feelings out.
Yeah.
It's also really important to journal different different medications or different treatment options that you're going through, because I've found from my own experience, when you go back and you look at the journals after the fact, then you're able to be a little bit more objective as to whether or not that treatment actually worked or not. So journaling is a great tool for both you and for your doctor as far as, mitigating your different options going forward. And then the fifth one would be don't let the endo become your identity. It's really hard to sometimes separate yourself from the disease because it takes so much out of you. It demands so much of your focus. Whether you're changing your diet habits because you're hoping that it's going to help with pain or help with different symptoms associated with endo, making a lifestyle change that, completely removes dairy and gluten and soy from your diet like I have done, takes a lot of planning. But I don't look at it now as, well, I'm doing this because of the endometriosis. The endometriosis has made me cut out cheesecake, and I love cheesecake. I look at it as being, I am certainly a person that is all about instant gratification. So my instant gratification is the fact that if I don't eat the cheesecake, I'm not going to be suffering for 3 days after the cheesecake. So by making that decision, I am making a more comfortable me for the next couple of days, and that is my instant gratification. It's other things, too. It's like, when you're making those decisions to get out of bed in the morning, when you really don't want to get out of bed because you hurt so bad, it's pushing through and looking at your potential and saying, well, if I do get out of bed and I do accomplish these things, it's going to feel really good because I accomplished these things despite of the pain or the discomfort that I'm in. So it's about challenging yourself and not necessarily putting everything in the context of the disease, that I can't do this because the disease won't let me. It's about mindset. It's about attitude. And, there is no cure for this. So, if you're young, if heaven forbid you're one of those teenagers that are dealing with this, it really sucks, and I have no idea how they get through the day-to-day. Thank goodness, for me at least, this struck me when I was 27. That's when the pain hurt. And so I was through university and college and my bar star days and, had my fun. I can't imagine life with sacrificing those type of things. And so, you have to put the disease and the pain aside and say, okay, what are my priorities? What are the things that I want to accomplish and do? What are the things I want to experience? And then make a plan as to how you're going to get through and do them. I do believe that we've become quite strong in the face of adversity. From looking at the members of the group, endometriosis seems to pick smart, strong, beautiful women. It seems to be their prime target.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And so, even though it targets us and it says, well, despite your looks, despite your brains, and despite your ambition, I'm going to squash you.
I know. I think I made a comment for Sarah Ann Sorbo a couple of times when she was showing off her new endo tattoos. I was like, you make endo look hot. There is so many, cute girls in the group. I mean, it's just, you're absolutely right. And they're all brilliant. So
exactly. And we should be the women that have everything going for us. The world just lays down at our feet. But for some reason, it's, fate says, we're going to give you this one little hurdle to deal with. And, everybody's severity of the disease is going to be different, and there's going to be some days where you can jump that hurdle and some days that you're not. But I think the biggest thing is not letting that define you. For me personally, I let that define me for too many years. And, I'm not willing to do that anymore. I spent 3 years where my definition was just basically it's like somebody hit the pause button on my life. And I didn't know what to do. I was in pause. And now there's no way that I want that pause button to be hit again. It's something that I have to live with, I have to move forward with. And, it's not going to be easy, but, I can't afford to lose 3 more years. Simple as that.
Gosh, I know it. Well, it was beautifully said, Lori, just beautifully said. Again, I want to thank you so much for everything that you do for all of us out there, and thank you for agreeing to come on the show, my second show, be my first guest. You were the first person that I thought of when I thought of this topic. You actually inspired this topic in my mind and in my heart, and you've done a lot for me personally, and you do a lot for everyone that encounters you. So thank you for being you and for coming on the show. I'm going to now play for you a little piece that I have titled The International Sisterhood of Endometriosis. I worked on this with a dear friend and professional person back in my professional acting days. She's a playwright named Courtney Shaughnessy, and she does not suffer from chronic pelvic pain whatsoever, but we are tight, and I email her and send her very specific stories and quotes and posts that I hear from women because I want her to understand. And I talk with her on the phone, and she knows, every in and out of kind of what I go through on a day-to-day basis and what a lot of women in the group go through. So we worked together on this, and I'm going to play it for you now, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you know that it comes from the heart. And after this is done, that'll conclude our show. I look forward to having all the listeners back next week for the third show from Pelvic Messenger, which will be with a woman named Gail Evo, who is the Director of Integrative Medicine at Beaumont Hospital, where I got most of my answers and multidisciplined approach and really was introduced to a lot of alternative therapies at this hospital and at this pelvic center. She's the director of the entire alternative integrative department, and she specializes in guided imagery, which is I would compare it to meditation. So I know that everybody is going to benefit from hearing her speak, and she's going to take us through one of those guided imagery sessions. So I hope to have everybody back with us next week. Please enjoy this, and I thank everyone for your time, and thank you, Lori.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
The International Sisterhood of Endometriosis. The definition of girl. G-I-R-L, a noun, meaning a female child from birth to growth, a young, immature woman, especially formally an unmarried one, a daughter, a sister, a mother, an aunt, a neighbor, a grandmother, a girl who started out rich, poor, middle class, a girl with little girl dreams, pink, yellow, purple, blue, brown, black, green, a definition across continents but united by life. Ribbons and Barbie cars and cursive handwriting dotted with hearts on every eye. Girl, a sister, a tomboy with skinned knees, catching fireflies as the sun finally starts to go down, putting bullfrogs in pickle buckets, blowing out candles on her ladybug, Spider-Man, SpongeBob, My Little Pony, Hello Kitty cake that took her mommy an entire afternoon to make, wishing, hoping, and dreaming of what life will be, what is coming, what will my story be. And the time ticks by, and what is normal must change. And that girl, your sister, who's yellow, red, black, white, her smile starts to change, and pain sets in, along with disappointment and a faded glow for her dream. Pain, unexplainable pain. The definition of pain, P-A-I-N, a noun, meaning physical suffering or distress as due to injury, illness, a distressing sensation in a particular part of the body, mental or emotional suffering or torment. Endometriosis. To cause physical pain, to hurt, to cause someone mental or emotional. Yes, endometriosis, endometriosis, endometriosis. A daily doubling over, heating pads, hiding, hurting. Your sister, this girl, she can't show up. She missed you blowing out the candles on your cake. She couldn't get up, couldn't get out. She couldn't bake. She got you a store-bought flour cake. Happy birthday, girl. A tomboy in bed, a beauty queen popping pills to sleep, a mommy unable to read a bedtime story. I'm sorry I missed your party. I'm sorry, sorry. A girl in pain, a woman, a sister, no different, but different all the same. The language she speaks is nothing close to the same. The pain is what unites her. She sends a card from Spain, from China, from the corner of the world. P.S. Hang in there, girl. She lends a hand. She understands the mystery. It's a different story for every sister, but exactly the same. And from across a different time zone, religion, culture, she gives advice that no doctor can. The prognosis is always, we don't know. Appointments, disappointments, searching, reading, hoping, hiding, still dreaming, losing out on love, asking too much, feeling like a burden, like this girl is wrong for hurting so much. And the answer is no. And the diagnosis is unknown. And the woman, she knows. The women that she knows, they won't leave her alone. They call, they write, they share stories, they fight. The endo community from across the globe bands together and they fight. They fight. All these sisters will never give up. They arm each other with strength and stories. They understand without words. They understand through pain. They fight. The definition of fight. F-I-G-H-T, a verb, meaning to contend with in battle or combat, war against. She fought her endometriosis, her endo, her pain, to contend with or against in any manner, to fight despair, to fight the passage of a bill, to carry on no matter how much pain you are in, to maintain a cause by fighting or contending, to get another opinion, to band together as sisters, to make our way by fighting or striving. Get out, get in, the battle is on. Fight, 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 fight the good friend. Fight for yourself. Fight for all of us. Fight the good fight. This girl in pain, she will fight. And so she will search for a cure as she continues. Dream, never slow up, and dream, never slow up, and dream, never slow up, and dream, never slow up.